Resident Evil Remastered is a remake of one of the most influential horror games of all time. You could say the first game to attempt this style was the original Alone in the Dark for the PC back in 1992. A horror game that used pre-rendered backgrounds and camera styles similar to Resident Evil, but predates it by 4 years. However, it did not age as gracefully as Resident Evil did. Resident Evil, on the other hand, mastered this gameplay style and coined the term survival horror back in 1996. Originally released for the PS1, it was a game that in today's standards of releasing the same old dry AAA titles every year, with not too many differences between them, was simply revolutionary for anyone who was just used to the 2D platformers of the early 90s. Getting used to the fixed camera angles and tank controls of the game was frustrating as fuck at first. I feel that these controls are the best way to play a survival horror game to date. Why, you may ask? I feel that these limitations make you more vulnerable to the enemies that are attacking you, thus making the game even more scarier. Fun fact for all those that like first-person shooters, Resident Evil was originally designed with either a first-person mode or it was going to be a first-person shooter, but they decided against it because of the hardware limitations at the time. Resident Evil was unique in many ways. It was one of the first games to have voice acting in it, and it shows because the voice acting is pretty bad. It's one of the worst video game voice acting to date, but it just has a little place in my heart and others' hearts because it's like that B movie. It's a cult following type thing. It's hard to explain. It's so beautiful. But in 1996, I felt that this voice acting was pretty good, especially compared to some Sega CD games like Sewer Shark and Corpse Killer. You were also able to find grim details of those who once lived in the mansion via diary entries. This further progressed Resident Evil's backstory, giving us another dimension of storytelling other than just the voice acting and cutscenes. Resident Evil's story just seemed to flow so well together, although I was 5 at the time, so what the fuck did I know? The original has so many variations. Let's count them down, shall we? We have Resident Evil for the PlayStation 1, the Resident Evil Director's Cut for PlayStation 1, which included new difficulty mode, new costumes, deleted scenes, new musical scores, new weapons, and an arrange mode where the item placement was different. One scene that particularly caught my interest was the scene where the Falling Stars member Forrest reanimates as a zombie. I don't know why, but I thought this was the tits. There is also the DualShock version of Resident Evil Director's Cut, which included an extra rumble feature if you upgrade to the newer controls at the time. The Sega Saturn version had an extra battle mode, costumes, a new enemy type, which kind of looked like a hunter, but it was a tick, a gold tyrant, and you could see Wesker as a zombie in the battle minigame. And I believe there was also an extra tyrant if you played as Chris at the end for whatever reason in the lab, so you got that to look forward to if you have that version. Then we have the recent DS port, or the most recent DS port I should say, which rearranged the item placement. That sort of added a new difficulty. It brought back the first-person mode in a weird way. By using the touchscreen, you could cut zombies in first person using your knife. It also had a multiplayer option where you could play as any of the STARS members racing against each other to get out of the mansion alive. The only drawback in my eyes is instead of seeing the other STARS member on screen, you would see a star racing around instead, so that kind of sucks. But if you act the game, you can play as any STARS member you like, so that's kind of cool. The DS version also had a cutscene that was not in any of the other Resident Evils that were mentioned before. That scene, of course, is the decapitation of Kenneth. The Japanese version has the exclusive original uncut opening, which I will provide in the link below if you want to check that out. You can also download Resident Evil via the PlayStation Network for PlayStation 3 and PSP. There's also PC ports of Resident Evil, which I believe people can hack into and make their own custom mods. So if you're into that, you might want to look out for that. I'm pretty sure people can do some cool stuff. I never owned any of the PC ports, so I have no idea anything about them. Capcom also had a Game Boy Color port planned at one time, and I think it was about 90% complete when they scrapped it. The game was cancelled because it didn't live up to Capcom's expectations of the console. However, you can download a ROM version of it today, so if you're browsing around the internet and want to play a 2D 8-bit Resident Evil, go for it. And then we have the GameCube remake, which was recently re-released in HD. This game's graphics blow me away. back then, in 2003 I believe it was, and still do in present day. I mean, the game still looks gorgeous on new-gen consoles. I couldn't believe how much detail they were able to squeeze on that GameCube disc. I mean, it was only a generation gap between the original. It was really the little things that made the atmosphere so much better, such as the dust kicking off the floor, dripping of the water, the dark grittiness of the atmosphere. Everything looked rusted and just decayed and disgusting, and it was just so beautiful and full of life. The remake brings new traps, new rooms, puzzles, enemies, and gameplay mechanics to a very familiar environment. The voice acting is way better, by the way, although the dialogue still seems a little dated and cheesy in some parts, but I think they were just trying to keep that B-movie feel. There was also a port for the Wii which didn't really update anything at all besides the controls, and I think a little bit of a graphical update. The HD port is in HD, giving console players a Resident Evil experience at 1080p 30 frames per second, and the PC players a added 60 frames per second at 1080p, depending on what hardware they're using. This update to the Resident Evil remake brings 2 new costumes, a new difficulty option, trophy/achievement support, and finally a new control option for newbies that make it so you can control with the stick instead of having to press a button and a direction in order to run. However, I feel that the classic control scheme works the best for that true Resident Evil experience. The remake, after being ported 2 console generations up, is still one of the best horror experiences around and definitely one of the most gorgeous games out there. Granted, the jump scares can get old after the first couple playthroughs, but I still found myself jumping at stupid things like Plant 42 breaking through the floors and strangling me. The eerie moans of a zombie reviving to life is just creepy, especially with headphones on. The game also plays with you in unexpected ways in a certain area, that way they can't come back as a stronger Crimson Head zombie later. Well, the game will have the zombie break through the doors and the narrower hallways where you're more likely to go to get to like the save room or something, which can make that room more problematic getting around them because there's no room to run. I recently found this out as I was trying to go through the game knife only, which I was successful at, instead of killing everything in my way like I normally do, because that's just the funner option. The game lets you play as 2 characters with different but similar storylines, Chris Redfield and Jill Valentine. Chris is basically hard mode, while Jill is easy. However, Chris can take more hits and is a better shot than Jill with more headshots with a standard gun, and also gets a flamethrower for a limited time. Jill, on the other hand, has a bigger inventory slot system and gets a powerful weapon early on in the game, the grenade launcher. This gun is good, however, it can make it more challenging with inventory management as it has multiple ammunition types. She also gets a lockpick, and as the master of unlocking, this really comes in handy. The lockpick is not only used for unlocking doors, but also the occasional desk. Chris has to find and carry around these old keys, which is really a pain in the ass because you already have a small inventory system with him. And the old keys just unlock the doors that Jill did with the lockpick. Chris has a lighter that can be used for burning the dead corpses of zombies so they don't regenerate into the faster, scarier, and deadlier Crimson Head zombies. New to this Resident Evil is the defensive weapons, which include a knife and a unique item depending on who you play. Chris gets a grenade and Jill gets a stun gun, and the stun gun obviously just stuns the zombies, while Chris shoves a grenade in their mouth and then with one shot blows off their head. Guaranteed. But the grenade can hurt Chris if he's too close. When an enemy grabs you, these items will automatically be used in order to prevent damage. In past Resident Evils, you were able to check items to see what they were and get more information about them. This Resident Evil makes this feature necessary in order to progress, as you will need to check certain items in order to find a secret button or if they attach or detach somehow. There are plenty of side characters all composed of other stars and members. The main ones are Rebecca Chambers, Albert Wesker, and Barry Burton. Barry is Jill's side character and Rebecca's is Chris's. Funny thing is, Barry is at least mentioned in Chris's campaign, while Rebecca is nowhere to be found in Jill's. These characters can either live or die at the end of the game depending on how you played, giving you a different but similar outcome each time. This game is full of enemy variety. Bosses can range from easy to frustratingly difficult depending on how you conserve your ammo. There are 2 additional bosses not found in the original Resident Evil, one with a very creepy and sad backstory, but I'll let you find out on your own. Something that always bothered me was what happened to Chris's gun. I mean, he had it in the opening scene. What happened to it? Did he drop it? Makes this fact even funnier is he's supposed to be the team's top marksman. Well, bad policemanship must be within the force, because not even 5 minutes later you find Jill's gun, which she just happened to drop. Don't they have gun holsters or something? As a horror game, it absolutely nails the atmosphere, and anyone who tells you otherwise is absolutely brain dead. The story is hit or miss because of inconsistencies throughout the series, but the premise of the games is pretty cool. A zombie virus that not only revives the dead, but mutates them into hideous abominations is pretty awesome, giving you much more than just a zombie game, a thing that has become massively popular in recent years, and Resident Evil was doing it way before it was cool. So, does the remake hold up today? And is it worth your money? In my opinion, yes and more yes. This game still looks beautiful in today's standards. The gameplay still holds up. It's still scary as hell. A lot of people probably missed out on this one in the franchise because it was GameCube exclusive and not too many people had GameCube. You especially should get this game if you never owned a GameCube. Now everyone had a Wii, so you think the Resident Evil Archive Edition would sell, but I feel not many people played their Wii after Wii Sports. It was just a novelty. This version also has online leaderboards if you're into that. The replay value in this game is staggering, with not only unlockable costumes and weapons, but also game modes that bring a new challenge. There are 3 game modes to be unlocked, all that revolve around the main story still. There's not a battle mode or anything like that. This includes true survival mode, which once you drop items off at a box, it has to be at that box, and that box only. It won't appear in any other room magically. Then we have invisible enemy mode, which is invisible enemies that you can't see until you come in contact with them. Then we have one zombie mode. One zombie mode has a really strong, powerful, fast zombie following you throughout the game, and you cannot kill him or else he will explode and take down the entire mansion with them because Capcom said so. So, enjoy the challenge, guys. The level and enemy design is some of the best in the series. Not to mention the art direction. I mean, this mansion just looks insanely good. Resident Evil, without a doubt, is one of the most beloved franchises in video game history. What I just listed wasn't even counting any of the sequels, the prequels, the movie tie-ins, even though they sucked, books, the action figures, and the ridiculously priced collector's items. And to see its sales still high is a testament to how great the game truly is. And we're not even talking about any of the sequels. This is just the first game and its many ports. So, if you guys enjoyed this video and want me to do more, or want to see more like it, I ask you subscribe, and comment, like the video. I'll try and get back to as many comments as I can if you guys do comment. So, thanks for that, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.